I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points? I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce.
Good morning, Vietnam! We're here at the College Basketball Live Show. Kyle said he would be back today, but he's a bit sick, folks. Whether it be due to alcohol, whether it be due to jet lag, whether it be
does
due
he
to
have the brown bottle flu?
Exactly, whether it be due to unknown sources, God knows. But we've got two healthy men in front of us. You've got Toast with the mostest, and we got Scoop. Oh, what do we got here, folks? We got Michigan State at Rutgers. Let's get into the action. We're a minute late. Let's not be sluts.
We are a minute late. God damn it, Scoop.
Yeah.
I also just woke Toast up. So
this is just all true. I'm not gonna lie. I had a long night last night. Everybody was out partying, hitting the clubs, changing diapers. It was a really good time. But Scoop. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. Why don't you start with us since you've been to Rutgers once or twice in your life?
When I showed up. So good old Rutgers. Piece of shit Rutgers. 6.5 points or 5.5 now. The only reason this number would be 5.5 if this game was at the rack, in my opinion. It's not. It's at MSG. Still, even if this game was at the rack, they did lose to Princeton, Wisconsin, Purdue at home. They didn't cover any of those. They did have a nice win against UCLA. And now, in undefeated in conference, Michigan State paying a visit to MSG. I don't think Rutgers should be here. They really didn't play that well against Illinois, but pulled out that 2-point win with Michigan State. They got rebounded by Illinois, which doesn't happen much this season, actually. Against Rutgers, they're going to go back to one of the best rebounding teams in the country. I know Toast is on Rutgers, but Rutgers is Rutgers. They have two good players. They don't have any depth. There's no bench to compete, and a worse defense than usual. I think they can compete against teams like Nebraska, UCLA, even hold it together for the most part against Penn State. But against Michigan State, they need more points than this. This line should be around 9.5, I think. It's not Michigan State's offense that's particularly strong. It's the worst Big Ten three-point shooting team, actually. I think they're in the middle of the road for the field goal percentage in general. The thing is, they're going to dominate Rutgers on the perimeter defensively and inside, I think, and they're going to clean up on both sides of the glass. So with those missed field goals, they're going to get a bunch of second chance opportunities. I just think it's going to be a big issue for Rutgers team that is 16th in the Big Ten in field goal defense. This isn't a Rutgers team for the last 5 years where they rely on defense. They just don't. So even though Michigan State isn't a great shooting team, they're going to kill them down low. Rutgers doesn't have a dominant rim protector at all. Rutgers is also 14th in the conference in field goal shooting. That won't bode well against Michigan State's defense. Again, the only thing I can rely on if you're pitting Rutgers is, I know Michigan State's 13-3 against Rutgers all time, but they did lose their last 3 road games against Rutgers. I think this is more of a reputation line. And the fact that Rutgers still has 2 of the top 5 players, that's obviously going to always help Rutgers. But no, Michigan State has a way more rounded team, and Akins, Fear, Carr with the perimeter defense, Zapola, Cooper down low. It's going to be a long game for Rutgers. I think Michigan State wins this by double digits.
I'm on Rutgers here. I got a Rutgers +6. I can't really argue that Rutgers has played bad. There's nothing for me to argue that point, but I will say that you have, like you mentioned, 2 talented kids, essentially are freshmen in Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, that continue to get better. And I was really impressed from what I saw against Penn State, and I understand that they lost that game, but also, if you watch that Penn State game, it was 8, but it should have probably been like 4 with the fouls at the end and whatnot. But regardless, you have Ace Bailey, who against Penn State had 30 points, 2 turnovers, a steal. He's doing absolutely everything. Dylan Harper still hasn't came around. He only had 7 points the last game, but he had 21 against Nebraska. You are 18 against UCLA. So I just feel like you have a Michigan State team that's really, really good. And I've said on this show multiple times that I'm not going to try to figure out ways to fade Sparty. And that's why I bet them against Illinois, because I really wanted to bet Illinois in that game. But I do think that on the road, Michigan State really hasn't been tested. I understand this is not a true road game, but I really don't trust Michigan State on the road like I do at home yet. And I just feel like there's a reason that this number was kind of low because it is going to be Madison Square Garden. But I really like the fact that Rutgers can really match up with them height-wise. Dylan Harper, 6'6", Ace Bailey, 6'10", Jeremiah Williams, 6'4", Deerdak, 6'6", Somerville, 6'10". I mean, every single person on Rutgers is like 6'4" or higher. So I do think that's going to give them a little bit of an advantage defensively. So we'll see what happens. I just feel like it's just one of those situations where I know that the world is going to be on Sparty. And so there's part of me that liked Rutgers, and that's why I took them. So I took them at 6. I got a little CLV, never good. It is what it is. So I am on Rutgers.
All righty, we're on to the next game, and we're talking now Mississippi State at the Cox. Cox up, Scoop?
Yeah, go Cox. I was really upset that South Carolina blew that lead against Florida. They should have won that game. They were inches away from making it, but unfortunately those inches are sometimes what you need to feel the Cox. I am on the Cox here. I feel those inches. 6.5 points at home. That's what I got it at. I don't know. It's not that good. I know all four games against the top 25 teams. The last 4 they lost 3. They didn't cover against Ole Miss. South Carolina has a good chance to win outright here. I really think so. I know they're 0-6 in conference. I said they weren't good, but I feel like this is like Georgetown. They compete in every game at home anyway. Besides that Bama game, a 3-point loss to Auburn, a 1-point loss to Florida. Both teams considerably better than Mississippi State. Also, I feel like this is a revenge game from a few weeks ago. Mississippi State started their 6-game losing streak. That game, they lost by 35 in Starkville. That may have been the worst shooting I've ever seen as a team. South Carolina went 7 minutes in that first half without a point. This team led Florida 39 minutes out of the last 40 last game. I really think things have settled down here for South Carolina, even though they haven't won, which is crazy to say. There's just no way South Carolina is shooting that bad again here. Mississippi State is on their 3rd road game in 11 days. They're turning the ball over a lot. The shooting's been off for them. And South Carolina is a solid defense and can definitely get to the line a bunch, something they do actually pretty well. I think it's just going to be a tight game here. Murray Boyle should, I think, keep Kashawn Murray down. And Hubbard hasn't been shooting that great lately. So if Jamari Thomas can stay in front of him, I think Carolina can win this game, honestly. So go Cox.
I didn't bet this game. I would be on the other side if I had to. I know that South Carolina has played really well, especially over the last couple of weeks. Again, like Scoop said, they've been losing, but they've been close games. But I do think that it's a lot to ask these guys to play that game against Florida when they played almost as well as you're going to see South Carolina play. And they ended up losing that game. And I do think it's going to be a little bit hard for them to get back up for this game against Mississippi State, who, they've lost 3 or 4, but they lost to Kentucky, Auburn, and Tennessee, and then they beat Ole Miss in overtime. But I don't really like the fact that Mississippi State's going to be on the road. That's why I'm not really trying to lay multiple possessions with them, but they're going to be facing South Carolina is going to be facing a Mississippi State defense that's pretty damn solid. One of the best, the best defensive rebounding team in the conference. Not to mention the fact that South Carolina has a really issue turning the ball over, and that's one thing that Mississippi State can do is force turnovers. South Carolina might get to the line, but they're one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. So I just, maybe it's just me because I have this infatuation that I think that Mississippi State's better than people think they are. But until Mississippi State really loses a clunker, I'm still probably going to have that in the back of my head. This would be considered a clunker. I will give Scoop this, that Mississippi State does have Alabama on deck. It's in 4 days. It is at home, but still a big game for Mississippi State on deck. So if they're not ready today, they could lose this game outright. But again, I didn't bet it. I lean Mississippi State, but like I said, I didn't bet it.
All righty. We are
especially
on
at 7.5 now. I'd probably change that to South Carolina. I didn't realize it was 7.5 now. But anyway, go ahead, Scoop or Beaver.
now all good. All good. We are on to Iowa State at Arizona State. Are you going to fade Matt Campbell? Are you really going to do that, Toast?
Oh, Kyle's back. Great.
Yeah. Go ahead, Toast.
It would only be Iowa State for me here. I didn't bet it because I'm sure what is it now, like 10, 11? Yeah. So, well, it's 10 right now. Wasn't it 9.5 to open? Okay. Little surprised that it's not a little bit higher than that, but yeah. Arizona State is just kind of one of those teams that I think that they get a lot of credit for playing one of the best schedules in the country. I try to give teams a little bit credit when they schedule teams like that. I mean, Arizona State has the 6th best schedule in the country, so it's not like they're out here. I mean, again, when you say they're losing games, yes, they're losing games, but they're losing games to Kansas and Florida and BYU. Now, UCF and Cincinnati and stuff is a little bit different situation, but I just think it's a major letdown spot for Arizona State, going on the road to Morgantown, winning in Morgantown, and then having to come home a few days later and facing an Iowa State team that just lost to West Virginia a few days ago. They ended up killing UCF, but Iowa State's just been a completely different animal this year. At home or on the road, it hasn't really mattered. So I just don't know how Arizona State scores in this game. Arizona State, one of the worst teams in the country, turning the ball over. Iowa State, one of the best teams at turning the ball over. Iowa State, a great free throw shooting team. Arizona State, a bad free throw shooting team. Iowa State probably wins this game by 15 plus.
Wag says Dylan Harper is doubtful now, by the way. So last week when I
love college basketball so much.
Yeah, last
Good
week
job, world. Good
when
job.
I bet Iowa State as an away team, it burned me against West Virginia. Do I trust them as double digits against a Hurley? I think that this team is so much better at home. I know they are. They haven't won a road game by more than 10 yet. And Arizona State isn't that bad. They did just win at the same place Iowa State just lost to at West Virginia. I mean, plus this Iowa State team has back-to-back road games here, Arizona State and Arizona. I would take Iowa State here, though I'm not entirely confident. They're going to need a big road game won by a decent amount of points. I can see them winning this game pretty comfortably and losing to Arizona next. So Arizona State just doesn't have the offense to beat Iowa State. So I know I said the same thing about West Virginia, but Iowa State has a better defense than UCF and Baylor, where they lost both at home. And yeah, those losses were within 10 points. But what Joshua Jefferson did against UCF, I feel like he can replicate that against Arizona State. Bashir Jihad, I don't think he can stay with Jefferson here. I think he'll get absolutely dominated down low. BJ Freeman's okay on the perimeter, but Jones and Gilbert play really solid perimeter defense. I don't think Jihad will be able to do much of anything here, personally, for Arizona State. So Iowa State's just been dominant all year. I'm not going to let that West Virginia loss take anything away from that. Iowa State should be aggressive. They should cause a lot of turnovers here. Arizona State actually doesn't really move the ball around a lot. They're pretty bad in assist to turnover ratio. So it's not good going against the 6th best defense statistically. So this is going to be the hardest defense Arizona State has played so far. The times they did play a press style defense is Cincy a few games ago, where they lost by 7, and that's to a Cincy team that only has a defense. Iowa State has both here on both sides of the court. So I think Iowa State here wins fairly comfortable. 10's a little rough, but I would still take them here.
Yeah. Next game up, Beaver.
Alrighty, now we've got the Avengers heading into Tennessee to face Vanderbilt. Pretty low line here for a team that you call the Avengers. What's good with that?
Yeah, what is good with that? I'm on Vanderbilt.
Okay.
I faded my boys. That's ended up what happened. I took Vanderbilt plus 3.5. What's the line right now?
I believe it's 2.5. I mean, when I do these
it's 2.5.
things, it's
beautiful. And Dylan Harper most likely going to play. There's an ankle situation. I just got a text, so we should be all right. Anyway, yeah, I'm on Vandy here. Really hate this spot for Kentucky. First of all, coming off this is like a textbook sandwich spot for Kentucky. They played at home. They lost to Alabama. Obviously can't really fault them for that, but now they go on the road to play a Vandy team that's finally starting to really play well. I mean, obviously they lost to Alabama as well, but the fact that they have Tennessee, or the fact that that Kentucky has Tennessee on deck, I just really hate this spot for Kentucky. And I do think that Vanderbilt can match up with Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky does a couple things. Well, one thing that's going to bother me is the size. Kentucky is a huge basketball team compared to Vanderbilt, but both of them run similar paces. Neither team turns the basketball over. The only difference is that Vandy can force turnovers at one of the best rates in the country, and Kentucky defensively doesn't force turnovers at all. I just think that Vanderbilt's criminally underrated right now, that the way that they've been playing. Again, I know that they just lost to Alabama, But guess what? So did Kentucky. And the fact that Vanderbilt has actually looked really good at home against teams like South Carolina, Tennessee, among others, gives me a lot of hope that they play well here today. So again, I just think that the pace wise is what usually gets Kentucky on a lot of people, on a lot of teams, and they're not going to get that with Vanderbilt. And if Kentucky isn't holding on to the ball right now or today, which they haven't had issues with, but they haven't really faced a team like Vanderbilt like this, I think it could be an issue. So again, maybe it's just like the sharp mind saying that that's why this line was so short to begin with. But yeah, I played Vanderbilt plus 3.5 at home. I feel like this is essentially they're one of their bigger games left in the season. They're going to get Auburn at home in February, but that's pretty much it. So if you have Kentucky coming to town, it's going to be a pretty big weekend. So I expect that place to be packed, and let's go Vandy.
Really quick before they start, 2 soccer bets for you. Napoli, Juventus, both teams to score. That's at even money. And Man City to win on the money line against Chelsea, even though they suck. So both of those are cashing. So yeah, Vandy catching 3 points at home to Kentucky is an interesting line. I bet Kentucky, so I am on the other side of toast here. Kentucky is not a great away team. Their one win was against Mississippi State, win 2 weeks ago. But also, they've had a week to prepare for this game. I did bet this when it came out yesterday at 3.5. This line was like that Mississippi State line, really. I thought it was a bit of disrespectful to Kentucky and more hyped for Mississippi State. I think this is kind of the same. That game, Kentucky were underdogs on the road. They won outright. This one, they're favorites, but I don't think they're favorites by enough. This is really showing more respect to Vanderbilt for their game against Tennessee. Kentucky's not Tennessee. If anything, I see this playing out like the Alabama game, a team that's offensive, not a defensive showing like Tennessee. Kentucky can score, and they're going to score here. I bet Vandy against Tennessee because it's just a spot I like there. Tennessee on the road, pretty bad offense. But Kentucky is similar to Alabama. They're going to shoot a bunch of threes. They're going to play fast. They're going to score over 80 points. Vanderbilt just isn't going to turn Kentucky over like toast stinks, I don't think. Kentucky has issues defending the three like you saw against Bama. They give up 24, but Kentucky has length, not the length king like Prop Beaver, but the guards and wings should take advantage on the outside. I don't think it's a great matchup on the outside for Vandy here. They're good against slower teams with an average offense. Tennessee is a slower team with an average offense. Kentucky is not. So I get that this is a home game, but I see this playing out like the Alabama game for Vanderbilt. Vandy has a nice team. I'm not taking away anything for them, but I don't think they're here to compete yet with Kentucky with only getting 2.5.
All right.
Well, I got 3.5 scoop because I'm a sharp.
I'm giving 3.5, so I got negative too.
Battle the
That's
sharps.
probably
right
the
there.
winner. That's going to be the winner. I promise you that.
And speaking of battles, we've got the battle for Texas here. Texas A&M, Texas. What are we doing?
Scoop, what are your thoughts? Because I think everybody knows where I'm going. Because I'm going right back to my boys.
Yeah, this one was a rematch from earlier in the year when A&M dominated Texas at home. Dominated the glass. I feel like that's happening again here in Austin. I just don't think Texas is a good matchup for A&M overall. They're going to lose the rebounding advantage again here. I mean, Texas aren't doing well against these top teams. They beat Missouri last time out, sure, but I mean, let's not forget Missouri didn't win a conference game last year. They're overachieving. I don't believe in Missouri. It was their first ranked win of the season. But yeah, A&M is the best offensive rebounding team in the country. This Texas team is not good at rebounding the ball. It's not how they win games. Kaluma and Shedrick are the only players who can rebound, and they're not that good. So, and they're small. A&M has been solid on the defensive side of the ball. 57 to LSU. They gave up 62 to Ole Miss. Texas is an extremely solid offense. They're a good shooting team, but they're not a good offense. They're on par with Ole Miss. The way A&M is playing defense, they can definitely match up well here. Texas is an above average team. That's all. They're not good. They're a good shooting team. Like I said, if they're left open, they're going to hit their shots. They're not going to be left open here. And I'm not saying A&M is a great offense by any means, but I'm taking the way better defense here. When Texas beats an upper SEC type team, then I'll start to respect them here. But here, A&M's defense is going to shine. If you're betting a total, I would go under, by the way. I was thinking of betting that too. I still might. Texas's defense isn't that bad. And with A&M shooting the way they do, I can see stretches of no points at all from either side of the ball. But I like A&M. I took them on the money line.
I didn't bet this because I wanted to see if it moved at all, and it really didn't too much. But I would be on Texas here. Well, I guess it did kind of flip a little bit. Anyway, I would be on Texas here. First of all, I hate the spot for A&M after a huge road victory against Ole Miss. Come from behind in the last couple minutes. They got a really nice win, and now coming on the road to Texas, facing a Texas team that's, they're fresh off a Missouri win, but they've also taken home losses to Auburn and Tennessee, which, again, both of those games, I mean, if you watch those games, they kind of were blown out in the first half in Auburn, and then they really came back, only lost by 5. Tennessee was the same type of thing. Tennessee kind of got on them early, and then Texas kind of really had a nice little spurt to start the second half, but then really just couldn't get over Tennessee. They lost that game by 4. But again, I just feel like Texas can match up well with Texas A&M personally. I think that both of these defenses are very comparable. I think obviously Texas A&M is probably way better coached, so they are a better defense. There's no question in my mind about that. But at the same time, the Texas offense, I do think, is night and day better than Texas A&M. So I also like the size that the fact that Texas has a lot of size. Trey Johnson 6'6", Kaluma 6'7", Jordan Pope 6'2". So guys like Wade Taylor and Phelps are 6'4", 6 foot. So maybe that is an issue here today scoring. Again, this Texas team just continues to treat me well, and it's almost like Andy's up there just playing with my emotions. I honestly feel like that because I cannot stress to you guys how much I hate Rodney Terry. But every time I bet him, they seem to come through for me in some way or another. So it is what it is. But Texas at home, I haven't bet this yet. Probably going to bet the Texas on the money line as soon as the show is over, to be dead honest with you guys.
Alrighty, let's move on to the next game. We do have a special guest joining us in a few moments. I just need to wait on him to get into the room. But before that, we're going to talk about, I guess, an Andy special here. We got the Georgia Bulldogs headed into Florida, into the swamp here. Big spread, 11.5 points. Let's start off with Scoop. Scoop, what are you doing?
I was going to say, please.
Yeah, I hate to ride the favorite train here, but I'm definitely betting Florida.
But you're a square? Okay. Right.
Yeah, 100% square. Florida at home especially. Let's be real, they should have lost that Carolina game, and like when they actually lost to Missouri, they aren't following up a shit game with another shit game. I got this at 9.5 yesterday. I bet it. That Texas line was 11, and me and Toast both agreed that it would be a dog walking. It was. They won by 24. This will be an actual dog walking because Uga 11 is going to get dog walked. He's the dog. He's the Georgia Bulldog. Yeah, so, I mean, Georgia's just in a tough stretch. We knew this would happen during this. It sucks for them. I mean, when Florida's on, it's just crazy how good they are offensively. I think Florida on their home court might be one of the best in the country, as a home court advantage right now next to Auburn. Georgia's pretty great defensively, but like what usually happens with them, when they're playing from behind, it's just hard to see their offense doing much to keep up. Florida obviously has a sizable rebound advantage. They're going to have more possessions, more opportunities. I mean, on the road, Georgia's averaging 57 points a game in the SEC. That's not going to do well here. Walter Clayton Jr. can go off at any time, and really, even with Georgia's struggles offensively, they also turn the ball over way too much. On that side, if you shut down Asa Newell, they're honestly pretty lost. So they're going to hit on him all game. Condon has looked better from last year. He's more of a two-way player now. It's just hard to see Georgia going into Gainesville and competing. Florida has the best SEC 2-point defense right now, so I feel like they're just going to attack them all game. I just don't see it. Georgia also has lost 13 in a row against Florida, so they got that going for them. And I know Georgia's going to probably play well to start, but I see Florida pulling away late. I just think Georgia doesn't have the offense to hang. And welcome back from Vegas, sir.
And you're muted. Oh, there it is.
I am muted.
He forgot how to use the...
It was actually proper for that to be muted. Yeah, it just landed a few hours ago. I knew when Chris gave out a first quarter team total over that it was just like, yo, I got to get back. Show's gone to shit. First quarter team total over. Get the fuck out of here.
There were some crazy bets being given out. That's
oh
for
my
sure.
gosh, that's funny. Welcome back, Kyle. Good to see you, buddy. I would be on Georgia here personally.
Wait, real quick, Scoop. What was your bet?
Go ahead.
Florida.
Okay.
I would be on Georgia here personally. I know that Georgia, obviously Florida is very, very good. I've made some really good money betting Florida this year. They're one of the teams that, I mean, you can essentially bet them every game and you're going to be making money. I mean, they had one clunker against Missouri. They lost that game by 1 at home. We saw, and then we've talked about the Kentucky game where they went on the road and scored 100 and lost. So there's no question in my mind that if Florida's on, this could be a really long game for Georgia. And I do worry, like what Scoop touched on about Georgia with their turnover problems. But a couple things that I do like is that Georgia defensively, I think, is a little bit underrated, especially in conference play. And I think that one thing that Florida usually has on a lot of teams is their height. Florida, a pretty big team, but Georgia is one of the biggest teams in the country. I mean, Asa Newell 6'11", Lefo 6'5", Damari 6'5", Montgomery 6'5", Lawrence and Kane 6'4" and 6'5". So every single person that Georgia puts out there is 6'4" essentially. So I do feel like guys like Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin and should have, I mean, they're very good basketball players. I'm not trying to say that they're going to have bad games, but I do think that Georgia can give them some trouble to clear this 11.5 points I'm about to bet. But you have a Georgia offense that, yes, hasn't been great, but this Florida defense isn't anything to ride home about. I mean, again, they've played Florida has played really well, but at the same time, I mean, this Georgia offense isn't any worse than Texas. They're not any much worse than Arkansas or anything like that. And all these games have been close. So I'm just not in a spot where I really want to lay points with Florida against a Georgia team that I personally think matches up kind of well with them. The only thing, and the one thing that is positive for me about Florida is that they're not a very good free throw shooting team. So I do think that if this game is late, within a few possessions late, that we definitely have a chance, if you're betting Georgia with me, to cover this number because of missed free throws for Florida. So there's just too many question marks for Florida for me. I'm going to be betting Georgia as soon as this show gets over.
Yeah. The line of the next one looks pretty. No, I like Florida. The line of the next one looks short, though. Oregon, Minnesota, 4.5 feels really short, right?
Almost suspiciously.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, Minnesota's good now, right? They're back.
No, they're not. They're not good, and they're not
Michigan
back.
and Iowa wins 2-0.
I know they got a Michigan win in overtime at home, and then they go on the road at Iowa and face an Iowa team that's fucking terrible. I'm sorry to cuss in this so early in the morning, but I am so sick of the Iowa Hawkeyes. It's not even funny. So
they didn't cover Iowa yesterday.
Fuck no, dude. Of course not.
They were
if
winning
I bet
the whole
that
time.
Team, they're definitely not going to cover. I promise you that. So I do not get lucky in any way, shape, or form. So, again, I lean the Ducks here. I think that this number is kind of absolutely crazy, but I think it's probably low for a reason. I mean, Oregon really hasn't had to be tested super bad on the road. I mean, Oregon State, Penn State, not that Minnesota is going to be the one to test them. I'm just saying that I'm trying to figure out ways why this number would be so short. But USC, Ohio State, Penn State are the 3 road games for Oregon. Again, nothing really there. Is Minnesota playing better basketball? Yeah, but Oregon is coming fresh off of a loss to Purdue, again, that they should have probably won that game. I know that Purdue looked really good, but Oregon at home has usually been a pretty good bet on situation. And then they come back and kill Washington. So, again, I lean with Oregon. This line is very, very suspicious. Oregon, a really good free throw shooting team. Minnesota, one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. Again, Oregon should win this game. Do I want to bet Oregon minus 4.5 in a suspicious line? Not really. Not in a day with 150 games on. So I lean Oregon, but that's just as square as it can get. So,
yeah, I don't know, man. They might be back. Dawson Garcia, maybe Big Ten Player of the Year now.
Did you bet Minnesota?
Hitting buzzer beater? No,
okay, thank you. I was gonna say, get the hell out of here.
I don't want to bet this game at all, to tell you the truth. If I was picking a team, I would definitely pick Oregon. But I don't know. Minnesota, I guess, is decent at home. Just the inconsistency is going to be there game to game. Also, did Kyle just randomly bounce?
I truly don't know. Yeah.
He's gonna throw. I guess he just went to go throw up. I don't know. Minnesota should get dominated in the paint. Really, it's something they struggle with all year. So I think Biddle should take advantage of that. Oregon's a good road team. They don't play much worse at all away from home. In fact, the numbers are a little better on the road this year. If you look at the splits. So I know Minnesota won their last 2 games. That doesn't take away the past 17 games before that. They're still one of the worst teams in scoring output. They play very slow. So when they do have possession, they do absolutely nothing with it. Oregon doesn't have a solid rebounding team. I mean, they were below 200 the last time I looked, I think last night, but Minnesota is around the same ranking in offensive rebounding. So the one thing that Minnesota could take advantage of, they really can't. So, yeah, I mean, Oregon's still undefeated on the road this season. They played way harder teams than this.
Yeah,
I mean, look at Oregon's wins. They're really great. I just don't see how Minnesota matches up well with Shellstat, especially. And yeah, just with Minnesota still struggling to score, I'll take Oregon on the road.
Also, there's like a major pace difference, and usually we know that home teams can usually do a good job of controlling the pace. Minnesota. So, again, I just felt like this line is so weird because I mean, Oregon should win this game probably by 10 plus, and this is, keep in mind, I've done pretty well on Minnesota, especially. I mean, they've done a really good job of covering. I don't know what their ATS record is, but it's not like, even against Maryland, I mean, it's not like they were terrible. Ohio State, they weren't terrible. Purdue got them. Wisconsin got them, but Purdue and Wisconsin are two offenses that can really blow you out at times, especially when they're on. So I don't think that Minnesota is like an absolute pushover. I just, like Scoop said, Oregon's been essentially better on the road than they have been at home. So obviously it helps that they've played some really good teams at home. But regardless, I just felt this number is just very, very suspicious. So that's why I didn't play it.
All right. On to the next game. We'll do Jesus. I'm really glad he came in for this. Duke Wake Forest. Let's see what we got here now.
Kyle, what do you think?
Yeah.
Listen, I guess I'll be square again. I've talked shit about Wake Forest since in their first game of the season. It's no different now, really. I don't think they're a good basketball team. They're just beating up the rest of the ACC, which are also not good basketball teams. So I guess give them credit. They're beating on the teams on the schedule. They're only one ACC loss to Clemson, but I mean, yeah, Duke looks pretty unbeatable right now. Cooper Flag looks great. They're 5-0 on the road this season. The thing with Duke, I guess, for their sake, is hopefully beating on the ACC will translate well to the NCAA tournament, because the only ranked team on their schedule right now in the future is Illinois, which is out of conference, obviously. So I think Proctor's a matchup problem for Wake Forest. I think Flag is. I think Evans is. I think there's mismatches all around in this game. I guess I get Wake Forest is 10-0 at home, sure. Again, it's not Duke. Duke's going to press you. They're going to cause a ton of problems. They're going to limit your shots. They have a really deep bench. I don't see a path for Wake here. Hunter Salas isn't bad. Neither is
Watch your mouth.
Hildreth. But even when Duke struggles, the second half of every game, they come out even stronger and really shut down teams. Plus, Duke's been off for a week. They prepare for this. It's not a far road trip at all. They're first in field goal shooting. They're top of the conference in threes. Their best scoring defense. Their best defensive field goal percentage in the SEC. This is a matchup problem all around for Wake. They're going to get out rebounded. They're going to get out length again. Shout out Beaver. They really are. Wake is a terrible rebounding team. Duke aren't going to give you a bunch of second chance points. I'll be honest. I am a Duke hater. I always pray for Duke's downfall. But I mean, them and Auburn are the two top teams right now. Possibly Houston. I'm not betting against Duke right now. They haven't played a close game since November, so I'm going to lay the 11 on the road.
Couldn't agree more. I think you're getting Wake Forest off of a huge win against North Carolina for them, which I had them on the money line. That was a really nice win. But you just said it. I mean, Duke is just absolutely annihilating everybody. Just really quickly, their wins against Boston College, 88-63, against Miami, 89-54. Notre Dame 86-78, Pittsburgh 76-47. I mean, I could keep on going down the list, but when this team win, I mean, this team is just absolutely slaughtering everybody. And now you have Wake in a really bad matchup. Not only a matchup in a really bad spot, and a matchup that really is bad for them too, because one, Wake Forest is another one of those teams that can really bother teams with their length. Unfortunately, Duke is one of the biggest teams in the country. Wake Forest can't shoot threes. They're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country. Duke has multiple guys that can shoot the three, whether it be Flag or Knipple or Proctor. Even Sion James has been shooting the ball really well for them. He doesn't take a whole bunch of shots, but he's been pretty decent when he shot it. So I think Duke probably could win this game by 20. Sure, maybe there's a small chance that maybe they finally stutter on the road a little bit. They haven't really been tested on the road. Their conference road games, SMU, Boston College, Georgia Tech. But Louisville is a really, really good win, and they beat Louisville by 10. So if you're beating Louisville by 10, my quick math tells me you should beat Wake Forest by, 50? So, I just think that Duke is just way, way better of a team. And I'm just like Scoop. I pray for Duke's downfall every year, but this team is just absolutely on another level right now. I'm not stepping in front of them.
Good analysis, Cal. All right, on to the next game. We're on to Ole Miss at Missouri. Small spread here, 3.5 points. What do we think, folks?
Scoop, do you have a play on this game? I haven't bet this game. That's the only reason I ask.
Yeah, I do. I'm taking Ole Miss here. I'm gonna ride Beard for the knockout punch. Call me a hater. I still don't believe in Missouri. Call me dumb. I probably am.
I 100% agree with that.
They beat Florida at Florida. They beat number 1 Kansas. They're still not a great defending team. That Kansas game, Kansas turned the ball over 22 times. It wasn't a defense. It was Kansas's offense that was. Yeah, what?
You know what bothers me about Missouri is that everybody builds this team up for beating LSU, Vanderbilt, Arkansas. Like, I think that, yes, they had one good game that they couldn't shoot against Florida, but now we're just going to pretend like they're a good basketball team because they beat up the bottom feeders. I'm sorry. It just really pisses me off.
Yeah, in the Florida game, they couldn't miss in that first half. They were shooting lights out. But you saw in Texas what can happen when they go cold. Really, that Texas game set basketball back a little because both teams couldn't hit anything. But the last 2 teams Ole Miss played, Mississippi State, A&M, combined lost by 5 points. Both teams, in my opinion, way better than Missouri. Ole Miss will pressure you. They rely on defense. They limit you from 3. They're holding the teams to 29%. And the pressure should be a lot for Missouri. Ole Miss is top 5 in steals per game. The thing this game is Missouri is going to give you rebounds. They're 275th in offensive rebounds allowed. Malik Dia has struggled the past 2 games, but this is a game to get him right. Missouri's not great on the inside. I didn't see that Texas game as a trap game for Missouri. I saw it as a coming down to earth type of game for them. And now they play 4 ranked teams on deck. Possibly Ole Miss coming off 2 losses, but it's not going to get any easier for them. The defense for Ole Miss may be the best in the SEC. They held Alabama to 64 points in Alabama. Regression is coming to Missouri. It's going to happen over the next few games. It's going to happen here. I just don't see them coming off their worst offensive game of the season and all of a sudden clicking against one of the best defenses in the league. So, plus Ole Miss has been solid against the spread, 13-6. They've been a hot team to bet. So I'm definitely betting Ole Miss on the road.
And it's not that I'm hungover. I've been basically homeless. So I had to check out of Caesars at 11 a.m. and my flight wasn't until 11 p.m. So I just got home and basically I've just been like out and about for 24 straight hours.
He was a man of the night.
Yeah, I mean, I did consume some alcoholic beverages with Ski last night. That did happen, but that's not. I'm just out of it.
People don't understand those cross-country flights. They get you. Doesn't matter if you're sober or not. They get you.
And I've been like up walking all day. And
I know that's through the airports too, and then you have to sit in those damn chairs. Trust me, bro, I get it.
Did you play any slots in the airport?
No. Although I was impressed. So I was talking a lot of shit to Ski. He was like, "Oh yeah, let's bet on a horse race," and I'm like, "Dude, I'm not betting on a fucking horse race."
I love the horses.
Yeah, well, he checked his phone. He's on looking at shit, and he's like, "Not this race, the next race, the number 10 horse." And I was like, "I'll put $100 on it," but like, I had no confidence it was actually gonna win. Fucking horse won, man. I was definitely impressed. I didn't think
get him on for the.
What was the odds of the horse?
9-5, I think it was the favorite, but it was like
that's fine.
Like
I was gonna say you're still.
We should get him on for the Kentucky Derby.
I would love that. We should do that.
I placed the bet literally making fun of him. I was laughing like, you bet on this dumb shit. Like I literally I'm just gonna end the horse won.
You never been to like Monmouth or anything?
No, but I'm saying like you can't win betting horses. That was my contention. Like you can't win betting this shit. There's no edge to be had betting horses. And I'm not saying one bet changes my stance on that. I will say I was impressed that he gave one horse that was in not this race, the next race, and the horse won. I thought it was impressive.
He knows his mares.
Guy knows horse.
He knows horse.
You know what's sad? Horse racing really hasn't been the same since Pio Mai has died. But
exactly.
If you get that reference, I respect you.
That faithful day.
Put Ole Miss up for me, yo.
Yeah, I now back to basketball. Ole Miss for me as well. You're getting Ole Miss, who I agree with Scoop. I think that Missouri's a little bit of fool's gold. Yes, they have one good win against Florida on the road. That was a really impressive night. But at the same time, they shot almost 40% from deep. They shot almost 50% from the field in general. I have a hard time you're going to be doing that against a Mississippi's defense, or Mississippi defense that is one of the best in the conference, one of the best in the nation. Not to mention the fact that you have them off of 2 straight losses. I just feel like not only is this a pretty decent step up in competition for Missouri, again, after playing Texas and Arkansas on back-to-back nights, even going back to like what I said at the beginning too, going back Texas, Arkansas, Florida, Vanderbilt, LSU for Missouri. I mean, I do feel like Ole Miss is a significant step up in class for them. So not to mention the fact that Ole Miss is a really good team that doesn't turn the ball over, which that really helps me a lot because Missouri's been getting a lot of points off of turnovers. Again, Missouri also one of those teams that fouls a lot. They're very handsy. They put teams on the line a lot. Mississippi, not a great free throw shooting team, but they're an experienced group. They're one of the most experienced teams in the country. So unless Mississippi is just out here shooting bricks all night and Missouri's using some of their height to get all these rebounds, because that could be an issue here is rebounding. Missouri has a significant rebounding advantage. But again, I think that Mississippi is going to slow this game down. They're going to play through their defense and they're going to make things hard for Missouri to score it here. So I'm going to be betting Mississippi Mississippi plus 3.5 and see where we're at.
I like that one. Next one's a good one. And what is this line, dude? Who's taking Kansas plus 1.5 here? I think you have to because of the line, right? You got to think the whole world's betting Houston at this number.
I was going to say there's probably a good chance of that. Go ahead, Scoop. If you have.
What do you think this number should be?
Yet.
Like, don't you think this number's off a little bit? I mean,
like 4.5.
Right.
Yeah, so, I was going to say at least a full possession. I would agree with that. I don't know about 4.5, but at least 3. At least.
Also, Hesh got no respect on the Sopranos for Pie and I mean, is Kansas good? Have they played? Toast, is Kansas good? Have they played an upper echelon team well?
Toast says Toast contention is Kansas is not good. I've heard it before.
It's just a question. I get it. No, I'm dead serious. I don't think they're that good. No, I do not. Realistically, I don't think they can compete here, but I'm also too much of a V to bet this game. I just don't want to bet against Kansas at home catching points. It just doesn't seem right. Kansas's 4 losses were against pretty solid team, but yeah, they did lose at Allen Fieldhouse once already this year to West Virginia, and that was by 1. But also, when they played a defense like Houston and Iowa State, they were completely shut down. Even when they played Cincy, they only scored 54 points. So another solid defense. I just don't trust Kansas's offense. I know Houston's a better team offensively and defensively this year. Well, Houston is better than anyone defensively pretty much the last 3 years, but now they have an offensive game to go with it. It's still not amazing, but it's the best they've had in the last 3. Houston's 3-0 on the road this year. None of them were hard teams, but before that Utah team game, they only beat Central Florida by 1 on the road. The only way I think Kansas can stay in this is if they're aggressive, be aggressive. I can't do it. Only 2 losses were neutral site games. Even if Dickinson goes well in the post, I don't see any perimeter shooters getting open, but KJ Adams is out, and AJ Storr from Wisconsin, I'm sorry, he's been terrible. He's not going to have a good game again like TCU. I just don't see that. I know they have Mayo, but Cryer is still the best perimeter defender in the game right now. So the issue, though, circles back is what I said in the beginning. How good is Houston also? I mean, they have the 49th hardest schedule. It's going to be a tough test for them. So, no, I'm not comfortable betting Houston. I'm going to be a bystander, but if I did make a bet, I would take Houston.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people in the comments saying they're taking Kansas. TWD said Kansas plus 2. Houston betters with like crying emoji, laughing emoji, crying emoji. B Felly's on Kansas. RU says he's got Rue's got his kids' insurance money on Kansas. So there are people in the comments taking Kansas.
I would lean Kansas. Well, I'm not betting this game. I think this is the best game probably on TV. Today. So I lean Kansas, and here's why. Here's why. I do want to see Houston prove it to me. Again, Houston has been playing really good, but against who? Utah, UCF, West Virginia. I'll give you that's a decent win. But Kansas State, TCU, BYU, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, Toledo, Troy, Butler. I don't want to keep going, but they played a couple decent teams in the neutrals earlier in this year in that conference tournament in Vegas. I can't think of what it's called right now, but it doesn't matter. But you have a Kansas team that is at home. Again, I'm not trying to make a case for Kansas, but I will say that they've played a little bit better competition. I know that Iowa State game doesn't really look great for them, and Scoop was dead right. I mean, with KJ Adams out, AJ Storr not doing anything, I do think that they'll probably stay in this game somewhat. I mean, Houston's not a team that really worries me about blowing teams out, really. I mean, obviously, when they play bad teams, they look really bad. But I do think that Hunter Dickinson should be able to score a little bit here today. But I do think that the fact that KJ Adams is out and the fact that AJ Storr has done absolutely nothing, it's just at the beginning of the year, you assume that Kansas is going to be good because they have like the best three or four players in the country together. Not saying that all those players are individually better than everybody else, but as a collective, those four players, it's hard to beat those four. So again, I lean Kansas here just because I think the number is kind of weird. And I do think that if Houston doesn't have the 3 ball, which could be a little bit of a different story. Again, Houston really hasn't been tested in an environment like Kansas. And one thing that Houston really relies on besides playing their defense is shooting the 3 ball, 5th best 3-point shooting team in the country. Kansas is a top 10 team defending the 3. So, and Kansas, that's where I think the difference is in this game, is that I think that Kansas defense actually matches up very, very well with the Houston defense. So if you get any kind of spark from Kansas at home, you're going to probably have a really good chance of winning this game. So it's a question of, do they get that spark? And I don't really know.
I don't know. I guess I lean Kansas.
Yeah, it's like the biggest game on the board. It's like the hardest. I mean, yeah.
Nah.
It's really hard to find an edge when on a game that the books know that every person in the world is going to be watching and betting, so
Next game sucks. Florida State, Stanford. The two after that, the Florida State, Stanford next. The two after that are kind of cool.
Yeah.
Stanford -4.5 at home.
Florida State and Stanford are like every other team in the ACC. They're just there. Middle of the road bubble team.
That's actually a good way to put it, actually.
Yeah, they're all bubble teams. After that run from Stanford of 3 losses, they won 4 of their last 5, though. I don't really count the Miami game. I'm pretty sure they're point shaving at this point.
No,
really,
they're just
though, yeah, I mean, really, this may be the Jameer Watkins and Maxime Ronald show. I think Florida State actually has the better team, at least right now, in my opinion. I'm on Florida State here. I made a bet on Florida State here. They looked pretty bad against Cal, but they had nice Pitt and Georgia Tech games. They both won them.
I just want to say, keep in mind, Cal had their best 2 players not playing, and Florida State still lost by 10. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just feel like Florida's a more balanced team than when Stanford strictly relies on Renaud. Florida State really does have a great defense. They're definitely better than Stanford's. They just have solid perimeter defense. They hold teams at 30% from 3, and Stanford launches a ton of them a game. I just think Stanford may struggle to score here, and really that Cal game, they both suck too. Rebounds that game, they couldn't get to the line. I feel like that's an anomaly because that just, I mean, they had 18 more free throws than Florida State. It was 19-3 on the line. It's how Florida State lost. What's crazy is Florida had 21 offensive rebounds and they had 5 free throw attempts. So that's just ridiculous. So I don't know if books are putting stock in that Miami win. Obviously, I just like Florida State here. I think they're a better team. But the biggest handicap on this game is Florida State's going to wear their Nike Seminole Heritage turquoise uniforms here against Stanford. It's the 31st time they've worn this, and since 2013. I think it's the first time they've worn them against Stanford. So, yeah, they're 22-8 wearing those turquoise uniforms. So, Florida State money line.
22-8 wearing the turquoise uniforms.
Yep. The Nike Seminole Heritage turquoise uniforms.
The Nike Seminole Heritage turquoise uniforms. And you're 22-8, and you thought this is information that we needed.
If you're not betting the money line, I don't know what you're doing personally.
All right, Toast, are you betting the fucking whatever turquoise uniforms?
Absolutely not. I'm not betting. I just can't get over what I saw against Cal from Florida State, and now they're going to be facing a Stanford team that has been playing somewhat decent since the beginning of the year. Again, Florida State's a little bit of a step up in competition, but Stanford was able to beat. I don't really put any stock into the Miami win. That means nothing. But North Carolina, they had that win. Obviously, going on the road to Wake Forest, they lost that game. But I mean, Virginia Tech, I mean, I don't think that those teams are head and shoulders worse than Florida State at all. I mean, what has Florida State done to be that impressive, especially on the road? Lost to California, lost to Clemson. They beat Miami. Me, Scoop, Beaver, and the four of us on this show could beat Miami right now without a fifth player. I'm dead serious when I say that. So I just have to see Florida State on the road do something, and you're going to be facing a Stanford team that, for one, matches up with them. Florida, just like Duke and a few other teams in the country that usually can beat teams just with size alone, and you're not going to be able to do that against Stanford because Stanford has trees as well. Renaud's 7'1", that Opeka gets 6'6", Sellers is 6'5", Angwal, or however you say his last name, is 6'6". Stanford's a pretty damn good team, and it's a battle of paces. Stanford, one of the slower teams in the country. Florida State likes to play in transition. I just feel like Florida State's probably going to struggle here today because they can't shoot the three ball at all. They really rely inside, and I think that Stanford can match up with them inside. Not to mention the fact Florida kind of handsy on defense because they play this little erratic style. They put teams on the line a lot. Stanford, one of the top 30 free throw shooting teams in the country. Stanford also doesn't turn the ball over. So as much as you can say, well, Florida State might force some turnovers here, Stanford 33 in the nation in offensive turnover rate. They really don't turn the basketball over. They really play slow. And I have a hard time believing Florida State on their second leg of their West Coast road trip is going to be able to slow down or speed up Stanford. I don't really know if they're going to have the legs to do that. So I'm not betting Stanford because I think this line's a little bit inflated because they just came off of a 30-point win against Miami, but I do think that Stanford wins the game.
No, I'm going with the heritage.
The turquoise?
Yeah.
The natives?
That was compelling. I want the money line, though. I want the money line.
I wish just somebody in the comments, and I'm not even making joke, I wonder what the turquoise means with the Native Americans, because like Gonzaga's made.
Yeah, it's remember the Arizona Diamondbacks too?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And then I live in Alaska. There's a lot of Native American Eskimos here, a lot. And you know what the most popular thing is? They have like this blue string of hair. Like so many of them have this like the turquoise color of hair. And I'm not even making fun. I was just curious what that meant. Like
that color is. I wish I knew. It's something though.
So
next game.
Anywho, X gonna give it to you.
Yeah, I'll go heritage jerseys. Yo, has the market gotten too far here? Musketeers are laying. They're laying. Come on, dude.
I told Toast that I am not putting any money on UConn.
Nah, UConn. Now. You bet UConn here. The market has gone crazy.
Both of you should bet UConn.
I am going to bet UConn.
I'm not betting anything.
You're going to lay points with the Musketeers to UConn.
Well, I'm a sniper, so I got the money line. But yeah,
he's a sniper.
It's a sniper. All right.
Well, you bet it, so go ahead, Toast.
I did bet it. Let me see what the number I got, just so I'm not talking out my ass. Where is this? Xavier.
Be more than usual, but
well, someone's got to show up to the show, Scoop. I mean, Xavier on the money line, yeah, minus 110-ish. Again, so first of all, I'm not a really believer in this Connecticut team. I think I've been on record that for a while now. I don't think anybody needs me to tell you that. But I am starting to kind of really like what I've seen from Xavier over the past couple weeks. Again, going on the road to Georgetown and losing doesn't really bother me that much. Then coming at home and losing a close one to St. John's, hard to bother me. They're beating the teams that they have to beat. But the question is that how do they match up with Connecticut? And I think that they match up pretty damn well with Connecticut. Connecticut has a really big advantage on the boards, and the best way to negate that is to get out in transition and get out and run, and that's what Xavier can do. Xavier 67th in average possession length, Kentucky 318 in average possession length. Kentucky likes to slow this game down and play through their defense and let guys like Caravan and McNeely, I know McNeely's hurt, but that's their idea behind their team, is let those guys work through it and get offensive possessions, like good offensive possessions in the half court. But Xavier's defense is very, very good. And I honestly think it's one of the more underrated units in the country. The one thing that we know with UConn, especially guys like Caravan, I know, again, McNeely's hurt, in solo ball that shoots the three ball well, at least at a high percentage, is that they can shoot the three ball. And Xavier's been the best team in the conference at limiting teams at shooting from the free throw line. I will say that it kind of bothers me that Xavier does have a little bit of an issue fouling because Connecticut's a really good free throw shooting team. But trusting Connecticut on the road. And I also think that this number is kind of pretty telling. It feels like the books kind of want you to take the plus money with the UConn Huskies here. So I think that UConn has looked really, really good at times. I've also think they've had some really bad clunkers. And I don't really trust their free throw shooting at times, because in the clutch times, a la that Villanova game, the Creighton game, they kind of really lost it on the line for them. And so in pressure situations, I'm not really there. Not to mention they just played Butler at home, and they barely won that game. What was it? 2 points, 3 points, whatever it was. So I'm just not in a spot where I feel like UConn's the same UConn team. And again, I think this line's very telling. This is probably going to be the biggest game left of the year for Xavier. I think this place is going to be absolutely rocking tonight. And they probably get the win here tonight. So yes, I did bet Xavier on the money line.
This line's crazy. They've gone too far with it.
Yeah, I'm not betting UConn. I still holds true when I said Toast. I'm not betting them even the underdogs of Xavier. What a downfall that is. Last year, UConn would be laying 6 and 7 here. The one thing I did love is Hurley yelling at the ref, "Don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in the league."
Oh my God! I can't play FTEs either.
What a goober! Guy is such a loser.
Dude, he sucks, dude. I hate that guy.
Sean Miller isn't much better at crying about his schedule.
No, he's terrible, but at least
Xavier's 1 and 6 in quad 1 games. They've had a tough schedule, but you know what's funny is I told Toast, UConn isn't even a quad 1 opponent anymore. They are now in quad 2. So with that St. John's loss, they just had, Xavier had 2 points from their bench, 2 free throws from Hunter. That's not going to get it done. We're a little worried there. I think Xavier can compete here. Fremantle's been awesome. Conwell's been good. And while UConn can definitely compete offensively, UConn's defense is just so bad right now. I don't know how that loss is going to translate here for Xavier from last game. They had a 16-point lead when they were in that St. John's game, and they didn't even cover in overtime, which was rough for Toast. That's definitely deflating. And Xavier already played UConn to overtime earlier this year in UConn. They're just not closing out games. So when it comes down to the end, they're just not finishing. I would grab Xavier at home, I guess. UConn can't defend the perimeter well. They're literally last in the Big East in three-point defense, which is really impressive when you see some of these Big East teams. And last game, Xavier and UConn played. Xavier shot 54% from 3. I don't see that really changing here. Plus, UConn has turnover issues. They're towards the bottom in turnovers committed a game. Xavier has a sold-out game here. Even standing room tickets are sold out. Last game, really, when you look at it, this game's truly a toss-up. It should be closer at the game. You can make a case for either side. I know UConn still has a dominant offense, but I'd take Xavier at home. I do want to see Dan Hurley cry some more.
People asked about NBA. I know there's a lot of games. I was just flying overnight, so I'm going to be posting NBA bets in the Discord over the next few hours. But we're not going to be able to go through it on the show, though. I literally just landed, so it's just not time to prepare. But all right, 2 games left. Auburn at home, -5.5, right?
3 games left, right?
I see 2 left.
No, we got West Virginia, St. Mary's.
Oh, okay.
Did you? Sorry to interrupt you, Kyle. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was saying Auburn at home, right?
Oh yeah. I was just gonna ask Scoop if he actually bet this game or not. I was waiting to see what this line would be today.
I didn't yet. I'm not going against Auburn at home. I said it before. Yeah. I don't care about the number. Auburn's gonna play their game. I think they win this by double digits, truly. Tennessee's great defensively, but I don't think they're going to keep up here. I still think Auburn's the best team in the country, better than Duke, although Duke did beat them, so maybe it's 1 and 2. So maybe they're on par with Duke, but I do think that Auburn has by far the best offense in the country. This just isn't a good game for Tennessee, I don't think. They didn't cover in their last 3 road games. Maybe if this game was at home, I considered a 6.5 what this was. Now it's 5.5. We saw Auburn's last game with Georgia, which I should have covered and did not. They were up like 10 with a minute left, and they ended up winning by 2. But yeah, is Broom playing? Does anyone know yet?
Yeah, I just checked his Instagram. He's in. We're
okay,
good.
So, I think I'm definitely going to take them here.
Don't shrug your shoulders, Kyle. This is the new age. This is how you have to check to see if people are playing.
Instagram. Okay.
Yeah, well, Instagram's how you get news first, apparently.
I'm not going to get it from a reporter.
Yeah, I was going to bet him, I think, without Broom, so I'm still taking him here. I'm going to probably bet him now before it might go up again. He was questionable. He missed the last 2 games. I know. Yeah, he practiced yesterday, so it's great. Regardless, they did well without him against Mississippi State and Georgia. Auburn did have a week off for this one, but Chaney Johnson is getting burned a lot more minutes here. He filled in pretty well, so he's a good 6th man. So when I don't think Broom's going to have a full go. Like, I think he'll play probably half the minutes he usually does. But, so Tennessee just doesn't have an offensive game you can rely on for Auburn. Plus, Auburn has the most blocks in the country. I feel like I've mentioned length too much today, but if Tennessee wants to win, they have to follow that Georgia method and take advantage of the inside. But with Broome back, I don't see that happening because they really do have a solid interior defense, Tennessee, and offensively they're good at grabbing rebounds. So I know there might be value in betting Tennessee, but I know this was 3 possessions, but the third best defense is a rough go. But if Tennessee goes down early, it's just hard to see them coming back with them playing such a slow pace and on the road. So I'm definitely betting Auburn. I'm going to bet Auburn as soon as I'm done talking, actually. So.
Yeah.
Everyone's taking Auburn.
Yeah,
77% to 17%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You guys know me. Welcome to the jungle. I mean, that's anytime I get Auburn at home, that's going to be my play. This team is just absolutely on another level at home. You got Jabari.
By the way, sorry.
It's at 6.5 in some books now. It'll be 7 here within an hour, especially when that Jabari Broome information starts trickling through everybody's Instagram feeds. So, again, Scoop touched on it as well. Tennessee on the road has been kind of a fade. The fact that they won that Texas game was kind of lucky, in my opinion. And then they go on the road and they lose one to Vanderbilt. Obviously, they lost to Kentucky. And again, Auburn is better than both of those teams. So, again, not that that's the only reason, but again, you have an Auburn team that continues to be, elite on everything possible. And the other thing is that Tennessee's defense is really good, but at the same time, who have they had to play that has the type of offense that Auburn has? Vanderbilt was 40, Texas 51, Arkansas 89. The Florida game, that's the only comparable offense to Auburn. Really, they lost that game. Anytime that they've really faced teams that are really good offensively, they haven't really been great. So, again, that's a little bit of a stretch, and maybe Broome isn't 100%. But even with Broome not 100%, Chaz Lanier went absolutely off last game. Went 5 for 12 from deep. He had 23 points. Prior to that, he had 17, 5, 10, 10, and 10. And then he had 29 against Arkansas, but we know Arkansas is terrible. So I just have a hard time believing that Chaz Lanier has a really good night tonight. And then you're just essentially going to have Zakai Ziegler against Pettiford and Miles Kelly. I'll take those Miles Kelly and Pettiford over Zakai Ziegler. Maybe not as individuals, but together, I think they should be able to have him. And then I honestly don't know who on Tennessee is going to guard my boy Chad Baker-Mazara. The kid's 6'7". If they put Milicic on him, if he's healthy, it's going to be a nightmare. If Chaz Lanier has to guard him, it's going to be a nightmare, which is going to affect him offensively, in my opinion. So, I think Auburn wins by 10 plus. Honestly, Auburn at home is just a different animal.
Yeah, you can put Auburn up for me, even though everyone's betting Auburn.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't bet Auburn yet. I was just about to. We'll see. What I don't want to happen is I don't want to bet Auburn at 5.5 or something minus 120 and then send it out and everything be 6.5. It's just not. So
next, LSU Alabama. What the fuck, dude? 17.5.
I didn't realize it was 17. Jesus. I would actually kind of lean LSU here, personally. I don't know about you, Scoop, but just spot alone. Obviously LSU has Auburn on deck, but again, LSU doesn't expect to win those games. But Alabama is coming off of not only a Kentucky win, but a Vanderbilt win that, we just talked about Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's a pretty decent team right now. It's not a team that you can just walk over. They walked over them. But now you have Mississippi State on deck for Alabama. This is like one of those definitions of a sandwich spot for Alabama. Am I going to bet LSU? Probably not. They are pretty damn bad. But at the same time, LSU will run with Alabama. LSU plays at a somewhat decent pace as well. The issue with LSU is that they turn the ball over a lot, but Alabama, we know, is a good defensive team. They don't force turnovers at all. They're one of the worst teams in the country, forcing turnovers. So, LSU having a whole bunch of turnovers issues really doesn't bother me. And one thing that I do like about LSU, especially in this game, which Alabama really likes to shoot the three balls, that LSU doesn't shoot a lot of three balls. They're really bad at it, but they get a lot of their a lot of their points inside from the 2-point field goal percentage, and they're one of the best teams in the nation at that. And they're also one of the best free throw shooting teams in the nation. So you have an LSU team that's not going to live and die by the three, and which is on the road, I think is a really big deal, that they can play inside and hit their free throws against an Alabama team that lives and dies versus a three and can't hit their free throws. So if Alabama's just a little bit off here today and not hitting everything, it's going to be really hard for them to cover 18 points. Again, I don't think that LSU is fantastic, but in this specific matchup, I think there's avenues for them to play well and not lose by 18. Again, I don't think that LSU is going to win this game, but 18 points is a lot in a really bad spot, in my opinion, for Alabama.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Alabama, kind of when I do with Auburn. It's hard to bet them against them at home. It's a little different with a 17.5-point spread.
Right. Yeah.
LSU hasn't won an SEC away game yet. Obviously, that's not going to happen here. They did lose by 16 to Missouri, then 12 to Ole Miss, and 11 to A&M. So I guess they're improving. Bama did lose at home to Ole Miss a few weeks ago, but yeah, that's obviously Ole Miss. The pace that Alabama plays can put this game away quickly. If they're up by a few points, it can go to 10 in like a minute. LSU isn't a terrible team. I don't know if Matt McMahon will last after the season. But Cam Carter, Jordan Sears aren't bad. They're solid scorers. But let's be real, I think this may be a third straight 100-point win for Bama. Even though LSU can play some decent defense, Bama will win the offensive rebounding battle, defensive, and really offensively, they're going to shoot a ton of threes, get to the line a bunch, get inside a lot. After Auburn, Alabama's right there in terms of offensive output. Alabama is due for a game where they don't shoot well. It is basketball after all, and they are college kids. So I don't really want to make a pick on this one. If I had to, Alabama, but if I may take this one on a live bet. Maybe LSU can come out early if Bama isn't shooting well, and I can grab an 11 or a 10 with Alabama. So if it ever gets to single digits, especially then, but I don't like laying 17.5, even though LSU is a significantly worse team, especially on the road. So what happened?
Toast, you're muted.
Toast, you're muted.
If you want to bet Alabama, I wouldn't mind their team total. If you think that Alabama is going to come out here and play well. Huh? You can't hear me?
No, I said, what is it? Do you know what it is?
Oh, I don't know what it is. I'm just saying, like, if you're like Scoop and me that don't really want to lay 17.5, if you think Alabama's on, they're going to score. I would agree with that, with what Scoop said. So, last game on the docket tonight.
Yep.
West Coast in that little town called Pullman, Washington, huh? The Cougs. The game.
Alabama's 92.5, by the way.
Jesus Christ. What's the total of the game?
Total is
Alabama
167.
Oh, okay. That's not as bad. Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better. Still crazy, but a little bit better. Go ahead.
Yeah, so really this is just how good do you put St. Mary's at. I mean, I know they're 7-0 in conference. They're absolutely rolling through their conference too. 7 in a row. They won every game by double digits, especially beat San Francisco at home. Really, though, this is the first game they played someone in an upper tier of the conference, I'd say. Washington State.
Oh,
maybe I don't know. Washington State, meanwhile, lost to Pacific, so they're a really bad team.
Okay, but the question you have to ask yourself is Washington State better than Portland, San Diego, and Pepperdine?
Oh, yes, they are. They did lose at home.
The team that St. Mary's has played on the road. Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, I just feel like Washington State's kind of headed in the wrong direction. I really don't want to overcomplicate this. St. Mary's is a monster right now in conference. It's going to go hard. It's going to be hard to go against them. Meanwhile, Washington State barely squeaked by the worst team in the conference with San Diego. They did lose that Pacific game. They just got blown out by Santa Clara, which, whatever. Santa Clara is probably the second or third best conference team right now in terms of talent. But
100%.
No way I'm taking 5-6 points with them. I get that they're home in Pullman, but St. Mary's right now leads the conference in defensive 3-point percentage, 2-point percentage, points per game. So while Washington State does lead their conference in 3-point shooting, St. Mary's really does shut down the best part of their game. Plus, Washington State has a terrible turnover percentage. They're the worst in the conference. 21% of their possessions end in a turnover, which is miserable. St. Mary's 6-0 against the spread their last 6 games overall, 10-0 against the spread their last 10 outings on the road. I'm just going to bet St. Mary's. I'm not going to try to think anything of it.
Washington State +6 for me is on my card. I just kind of want to see St. Mary's show me on the road that they can overcome multiple obstacles. I mean, they just played a really big game against San Francisco. They won that game by 20. They look awesome. They got Washington State, who's terrible on the road, and then they got to go play Santa Clara and Gonzaga. This is again, I know that I've used this a lot, but there's 150 games on there. These spots happen. Again, another shitty spot for St. Mary's that, again, just played San Francisco, one of the best teams in the conference. They have a shitty low level Washington State team, and then they play Santa Clara, Gonzaga, San Francisco the next 3 games after that. Again, Washington State does have a turnover problem, 100%. But I think the one thing that negates that is that St. Mary's plays at a very, very slow pace, one of the slowest paces in the country, and Washington State plays at one of the fastest paces in the country. So sure, Washington State's going to turn the ball over, but they're also going to probably make up for that in easy transition buckets. And also, the another thing that Scoop talked about is that Washington State is at home, and they're the best 3-point shooting team in the conference, shooting nearly 39% as a team. Obviously, St. Mary's has done a really good job defensively, but again, since the beginning of January, who has St. Mary's played? Yes, the San Francisco game was great, but besides that, Pepperdine, San Diego, Loyola Marymount, Portland, Pepperdine, Pacific. Again, they just really haven't been tested. And again, not that Washington State's some world beater, but besides the fact that Washington State lost to an overtime game to Pacific, which it is what it is, things happen, it's college basketball. Washington State's been winning the games that they're supposed to win. Northern Iowa, they beat San Francisco. They beat San Diego. They beat Portland by 22. And they beat San Francisco by 9. So it's not like they just squeaked that one out. So it gives me a little bit of positive energy to think that they can stick in this game. But again, I just want to see St. Mary's show me that they can do something on the road against upper level competition. That's not, when I say upper level competition, I mean top 90, top 100 in KenPom, not the 309s, 214s, and 282s of the San Diego Pepperdines and of the world. So again, maybe I'm a little bit too. I just saw the picture of Sauce.
Oh, the Toy Story guy? Yeah. Someone said he looks like the Toy Story guy would be a registered sex offender. 100%.
Absolutely.
But I did bet Washington State +6. Both of these teams are just dog awful free throw shooting teams as well. The only difference is St. Mary's fouls a lot. They're one of the worst teams in the country at putting teams on the line, and Washington State does a really good job of not fouling as well. So I think that late in this game, if it's within 6 to 10 points, I think Washington State has a really good, decent chance of covering this game. So as long as they just don't get slaughtered on the rebounds, but I do think that they match up height-wise with them a little bit. So we'll see what happens. I'm not a big Washington State basketball fan, so it's not a homer pick. I just I do think that they can play well here today. We'll see. If St. Mary's wins this game by 20, then maybe we just start betting St. Mary's blind until they show us otherwise. But I just want to see it at least one time on the road against a somewhat decent competition, because again, the best team that they've probably played on the road in a true road game was Utah, and Utah's terrible, absolutely terrible. So don't really put too much stock into that one.
What do you think the Miami Utah line would be?
Where's it at?
Miami.
Utah -5.5.
Yeah.
6.
All right.
Something of that nature. You have to take 2 possessions away from Miami as soon as they step on the floor. So it's just really that simple for me.
Impressive stuff by
It's
my
very
guys.
impressive how bad they've been. I also bet against them today. So we'll see what happens. Just keep on betting against Miami, guys. They are just absolutely terrible. California, again, I bet them against California here today as well.
I did too. And I'm thinking about betting Baylor because the line was weird to me.
Yeah, I just don't know if you get Jeremy Roach today. That's the question. I don't have that answer. I haven't really looked it up today. But if you don't get Jeremy Roach, I think that could be an issue. So I'll just give out a few other plays that I had really quickly. I played Providence at home at the Dunk against our Hoyas. It kills me, but I do like the matchup for Providence here today. I played Nevada on the money line. I know that San Diego State has been a very, very good basketball team, especially lately and the last couple of years. And Nevada has just continues to find ways to lose games. But I think coming off that Utah State ass whooping on the road, they've been playing a little bit better at home. I think Nevada wins this game. So it's at 2.5 now. So I don't love that as much, but I still think Nevada wins that game. I got a full unit on Nevada money line as well. And I also played San Francisco minus 15.5 because San Diego is just that bad.
Alrighty. I thought I'd share. I got 3 NBA plays. I thought I might as
Hell
well
yeah.
share because Kyle's what is it? Kyle's still. I don't know what Kyle's doing actually right now as we speak. I mean, that's why we have this wonderful photo up. So we got the Nets money line and the Nets +9. I mean,
I tailed this last night.
Yeah, so I put that in the Discord. We also got Gobert over points. I'm aspiring to be the Gobert whisperer. So let's see if I can follow up the Gobert assist with some Gobert points here, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with our regularly scheduled programming. I think it's just the 2 NFL games we're gonna go over. I believe Toast, are you gonna come on for it?
Of course.
Okay.
Every
so
day.
Toast will provide his pristine kicking analysis. Scoop, what were you gonna say?
I am betting the Chiefs just because I'm not betting against Mahomes at home as an underdog, and plus if they win, I'll get some money, but if they lose, I'll also be happy.
There you go. So you guys got Scoop's analysis today, and then I believe
I'm
Jabbo,
on the NFL show for the vibes.
Exactly. Toast adds aura, and then I believe Jabbo will also be joining us tomorrow. So should be the 4 of us. Should be a healthy and happy Kyle, and yeah. So hope everybody has a great day. Tons of basketball on. And speak to you tomorrow. Remember to stay goated. That's the most important.